During the 17th century in a town now known as Saugus, settlers began separating themselves from England by creating a new way of life. In doing so, they constructed America's first lasting ironworks. In the 1600s, iron was in high demand for the production of everyday items such as nails for houses, cookware, tools, and weapons. At first, the only way to acquire iron was to have it imported from Europe. This made iron very expensive, so a few ironworks were constructed in the colonies in order to reduce the price. John Winthrop pushed for the initiative and became funded by overseas Puritan investors. Winthrop founded a blast furnace in Braintree in 1641. This, like most early efforts, turned out to be a failure due to a lack of raw materials and water power. The investors were disappointed and turned to a man named Richard Leader instead. Leader picked an area in Lynn, now part of Saugus, for the site of his ironworks. Because he picked this area, he had to work with Puritans, people who came to the New World in order to purify the church. The site became the foundation for the first ironworks to be integrated in the New World. Construction for the Saugus Ironworks began in 1645, and operations began in 1646. Powered by the strong current of the Saugus River and surrounded by plentiful amounts of raw iron ore, the Saugus Ironworks was well positioned for success. A typical ironworks requires four elements in order to be successful: local resources, a way of exporting finished goods, skilled and unskilled workers, and good equipment. The Saugus River supplied most of the resources necessary for operations. The water current turned large wooden water wheels that powered various pieces of equipment. There was a sufficient amount of trees to be turned into charcoal, which was used to heat the iron. Plentiful amounts of iron ore deposits were found in close bogs. Other materials could be found locally, such as gabbro rock used as a flux, which was found on the shoreline of the nearby Nahant Peninsula. When choosing the location of the Saugus Ironworks, Leader realized a section of the Saugus River was deep enough to accompany ships. This became a harbor for the ironworks. The importance of having a harbor is that it allowed the iron products to be transported and traded in various regions of the colonies. It was also a way of getting imported resources to the ironworks instead of transporting them by horse. It was much quicker and thus increased the efficiency of the entire operation. Since almost none of the settlers were skilled in the production of iron, skilled ironworkers were brought over from England in order to run the Saugus Ironworks. Unlike now, where someone could read a book or watch a video on how to produce iron, in the 1600s the only way to learn how to do a trade was to be an apprentice to a skilled worker. For the unskilled work such as shoveling coal and digging iron ore, Scottish war prisoners were brought over in order to cut costs and satisfy the ironworks investors. These foreign laborers did not get along well with the tight religious community since they were not Puritans. Those who disrespected the community were punished with various fines. Finally, the Saugus Ironworks would utilize the latest technology in creating iron. At one point, it was one of the most advanced ironworks in the world. This meant the operation was very sophisticated and could only be performed by experienced iron workers. The process began by pouring raw materials into the blast furnace where they were heated to a liquid using charcoal. Large bellows powered by a water wheel blew air into the base, intensifying the heat. This produced pig iron and gray iron, which could later be poured into molds to make pots, pans, kettles, and skillets. At the forge, pig iron was refined into wrought iron by utilizing a 500-pound hammer. The wrought iron was then shaped into bars and sold to blacksmiths who would manufacture them into finished products. Some of the iron bars went to a rolling and slitting mill where they could be manufactured into nails, bolts, horseshoes, wagon tires, axes, and saw blades. The ironworks produced 1 ton of cast iron a day and ran for 30 weeks out of the year. After 2 decades of operation, the Saugus Ironworks income began to follow a negative slope. Ownership switched hands multiple times and several lawsuits were filed by the investors. This eventually led to the closing of the ironworks in the year 1670. In the big picture, the Saugus Ironworks did more for the colonies than just produce iron. This was a step towards independence, specifically economic independence. Settlers no longer needed to depend on Europe in order to get their iron materials. Instead, they could just make their own. Also, being the first successful ironworks in North America, the Saugus Ironworks laid a foundation for the highly successful American metal industry. Although in recent years a large amount of metal manufacturing has shifted to China, America's techniques are still superior, thus the metals are stronger and last longer. The Saugus Ironworks has since been reconstructed and is open to the public for educational tours as a National Historic Site. The site consists of the blast furnace, forge, rolling mill, shear, slitter, and a quarter-ton drop hammer. There is also a functional blacksmith shop where nails can be seen produced around the hour. This experience can make for a great afternoon excursion.